Namaste. Welcome back to Mindful Serenity Yoga, or I should say, Waking Up with Mindful Serenity Yoga, the new title of this, whatever it is that I'm doing here. I am going to proceed with answering a question from the jar on this beautiful November day. Very warm and mild out there in my part of the world. Well, we consider 13 degrees mild in this part of the world. So for November, it's beautiful. Anyway, I am going to start my timer. Maybe not. Here we go. I think it's starting there now. And I'm going to reach into the jar and pull out a question. I'm kind of silhouetted, I see for myself, so hope that's okay with everyone. I'll get a little closer and get a little bit out of the light a little bit there. I don't know if I made it worse. Anyway, explain this quote. Stress is caused when people try to run their life engine without adequate lubrication. Sagaru. Stress is caused when people try to run their life engine without adequate lubrication. Sagaru. This is a quote from Sagaru, and I'm assuming because I'm reading Karma that it came from that book. Let me get that again. Stress is caused when people try to run their life engine without adequate lubrication. Let's look at that first of all. What is stress? There's three words that are coming on, three terms that are coming to mind. Stress, life engine, and without lubrication. Adequate lubrication. So we know stress is the way that we react to life circumstances, okay? So whether it be a perceived life circumstance or a legitimate threat to our survival, we have a tendency to react to it. React to it physiologically with the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic component of that, which is our stress system. We release adrenaline and cortisol into the body, which leads to a fight or flight type of situation where we're preparing the fight, flight, or freeze, where we're preparing the body to do one of those three things so that we can survive. Unfortunately, we have this reaction to things that are perceived threats and not real, actual threats to our survival. We may feel that way when someone calls us up and we're afraid to answer the phone. We get that sense of anxiety. It might be so-and-so and they might want to say this to me. Or we may get it when we're asked to speak in public. We may get it when someone cuts out in front of us in our cars, even though it's not life-threatening. The idea of making a mistake or having someone else hurt us, the thought of it may be something that triggers this reaction. So it can come from all kinds of external events, but it is never the external event that causes the stress feeling that we're feeling. It is our reaction, how we are reacting to what is presented in front of us. Physiologically, it's fairly clear what goes on. In order to fight or flight, muscles are going to need extra oxygen and extra attention, so they begin to tremble and get ready to do so. Pupils dilate, heart rate rises, respiration rises, so we can get oxygen to tissue that's needed to fight, flight, or freeze. So physiologically, those are the things that are going in the body. And after chronic stress, we may have tension in the shoulders, tension in the jaw, tension in the hips. Women tend to hold a lot of tension in their hips. I know that from my yoga classes. So we have this physiological reaction, but we also have a psychological reaction. The mind steps in. The mind steps in to say, oh gosh, this is a threat. We got to do something. What happens? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a threat to our physical survival. Like I said, it could be a threat to our psychosocial survival. What will that person think of me? What if I don't do that right? What if I goof up? What if they ridicule me or criticize me? What if that person doesn't like me or what I'm doing? What if, such and such a thing happens? So we spend a lot of time in our minds on these what ifs, and we are creating stress psychologically for our systems, which will then transfer physiologically to the system. We'll get the tense shoulders and the body reactions that come with acute stress reactions, fight or flight. So that's stress. But again, I got to stress it's not what's going on out there, it's how we perceive it, how we deal with the situation. Most of the times when we're feeling stress, we have a thought in our head, whether we're aware of it or not, that says, I can't handle this. I can't handle this. I don't want it. I want it gone. So it's based on a certain resistance of what is occurring in our moment. Resistance in the way things are because they're not the way we think they should be. That causes this stress reaction, both psychologically and physically. So the next thing Sadhguru says in this quote, besides, stress is, again, I'll read the quote, stress is caused when people try to run their life engine without adequate lubrication. So we have people trying to run their life engine. And what is a life engine? Life engine is our bodies, it's our minds, it's what we're here to do, it's these vessels that we're in, it's this world of form. And when we try to run those engines, take control of them so they do what we want, in a sense, what we're trying to do is get life to do what we want as well. What is comfortable for us, what is not so scary, what's going to make our lives as little me easier. So when we take this wonderful vessel of life we are and slap a big me on it as a label and start identifying with it as our property, ours to do something about, life being, something we are supposed to do something about, then we are trying to run our life engines. We're trying to be the drivers in these vessels as little me, as psyche, as this accumulation of stored memories and past impressions that have happened to us since we were born or even in previous lives that we now see as ourselves, that leads us to live our lives a certain way based on what we prefer and what we don't want in our lives based on past experiences. So that is running our life, attempting to run our life engines. So when stress against us is what happens when people try to run their life engine without lubrication, adequate lubrication. It's just like the engine in a car. If you don't put the lubrication in it and the oil in it, we know will overheat and run down. If we don't put the right lubrication into our life engines, into this experience of life that's right unfolding and manifesting right here and now, that you see as this form when you look at me, as you see as this person talking. If I don't add enough lubrication to that life engine, by giving it what it needs physically, health-wise, by giving it what it needs psychologically, but most importantly, by giving it what it needs spiritually. And what it needs spiritually is a little bit of detachment from this psyche, from this idea of me. I am not this idea of me, okay? The idea of me is just part of this life engine that I'm in here experiencing. But I become so identified with it. My focus is completely on this little experience of life, on this little dot, on a little speck with 8 billion other little dots, spinning around this humongous universe. And I'm thinking it's all about this little dot, and I'm trying to feed that little dot, trying to run that little dot so that the world runs the way I want. It's totally ridiculous. What this little dot wants is irrelevant and insignificant in the big scheme of things, isn't it? It's just not. But here I am trying to run it without the adequate lubrication, without that distance between between mind and who I really am. I'm so identified in it, I've got lost in it. Now it's time for me to create that lubrication that separates and step back a little bit from this experience of psyche that psyche is having, and observe it from a distance. That's what lubrication will do. What do we use to lubricate? To create this distance between mind and who we really are? Well, we can use mindfulness and meditation. We can use the present moment for all it is, instead of resisting it, which is what basically trying to run it without lubrication does. It's all about resistance, right? It's like if you don't have enough lubrication between something, you're going to have friction and resistance. It's not going to be smooth. So without that, we are resisting. And when we resist, we are not going to run smoothly. We're not going to have be able to use these little vessels of life experience we've been manifested into their best possible means. We're going to suffer, basically. So we need that lubrication of mindfulness and meditation, of stillness and awareness. So it's all about connecting and falling back into awareness. It's not about looking at me as a person who may occasionally be aware, but of falling back into what I am as awareness. And we do that a lot of times when me is out of the way. So the more lubrication we have between mind and who we really are, the more distance we create between this idea of little me and who we really are, the clearer we see, until eventually there is no little me. There's just this lubrication will just kind of allow it all to slip right off. So we're experiencing life fully and wholly as the existence that we are. You know, we're back in the present moment, experiencing life without resistance, without saying this should be, this is wrong, or this is bad. It simply is what it is. And we live life much more smoothly. These engines move much so smoothly. And we begin to realize that little me was never a very good driver to begin with. It was driving us all over the road, and it wasn't taking care of the mechanical devices that were in both the mind or the body enough in the right way. It was using it for its own service, its own selfish reasons. And when we can get beyond the selfishness of that, beyond the me of that, and allow ourselves to be driven by this spaciousness within us, then that is created by the lubrication, this distance between mind and who we really are, by detaching from the physical world to some degree, as lubrication will help us to do again. The vehicles we're in can drive smoothly. So as long as we are stressed, we're allowing me to drive, and we're not putting enough oil into our engines. We're not lubricating our engines. We're not creating enough distance between who we really are and who we think we are. And it requires some process to remove that thinking mind enough. We're getting distance enough from that thinking mind so that we fall back into who we really are. So we're not driving through life stressed out. We drive through life peacefully and naturally, without effortless action, in a sense. Well, that's all I have to say. I don't know why my timer didn't go off, but there we go. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day. Namaste.